TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Jerusalem officials believe that in the next several months, Israel will normalize its relations with a number of undisclosed countries. Israeli National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi does not believe that Iran and the United States would reach a nuclear agreement, despite reports insinuating otherwise. CENTCOM Commander General Michael Kurilla visits Israel amid a wide-scale IDF exercise which focuses on a military campaign in multiple arenas simultaneously. Israel is actively engaged in so-called Track 2 diplomacy aimed at normalizing relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, among other undisclosed regional and global countries. Circulating reports emerged of two separate phone calls between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Foreign Minister Eli Cohen with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman earlier this week, as part of which concrete deliberations via Bahraini mediation ensued about potentially facilitating direct flights between the Jewish state and the Arabian Kingdom to accommodate transit of thousands of Israeli Muslims intending to travel for the annual Hajj pilgrimage to the city of Mecca. And while limited details were leaked from the separate conversations, the messaging between Jerusalem and Riyadh stoked renewed chatter, highlighting prospects of imminent breakthrough, both in Israel and abroad, including a joint conference by the Institute for National Security Studies and the Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern and African Studies, titled Saudi Arabia Between Iran and Israel. Addressing the conference, former Mossad Director and National Security Advisor Yossi Cohen initially highlighted a question related to whether renewed normalization between Saudi Arabia and Iran would indeed impair Jerusalem's aspired rapprochement with Riyadh.
Does a bilateral Iranian-Saudi arrangement have necessarily implications for the state of Israel? I say, and I hope this to be true, that it doesn't. I think that what Israel needs to do in this relation is to try and enter into the Saudi shoes and comprehend that this matter does not necessarily intend to tell us that we have distanced ourselves. Rather, they tells us to understand their perspective, whether or not they have ties with Iran. Also France and Britain and relations and embassies in Iran. What does that mean? Is it against Israel? The Netherlands has an embassy in Tehran. Does it point to its relations with the state of Israel with the Saudis? Of course not. There are matters that happen on a bilateral level that do not necessarily impact the state of Israel at this stage.
The recently retired Mossad director went on to insist that a peace accord between Israel and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was both necessary and possible.
A normalization or peace treaty with Saudi is possible. I say, carefully, since I don't base this on intelligence of recent weeks, that these contacts, if they are managed intensively under correct and right brokerage, with good and correct assurances from the United States, with certain statements also regarding the Palestinian arena, but I don't think that it should be attached to concrete commitments of types of steps, because this would require policy to debate on from all sides. And to my assessment, this peace accord with the Saudis is both necessary and possible.
Also addressing the conference, the Israeli Foreign Ministry's Director General Ronen Levy initially highlighted three crucial ingredients which must converge to be able to establish a normalization accord between Jerusalem and any of the countries which continue to refuse over diplomatic relations with the Jewish state.
The main ingredients include timing, convergence of interests, and relationships. You cannot detract any of these ingredients when we want to manufacture a move of establishing or renewing relations with countries. These elements must converge with one another, and the moment we recognize them, we must act quickly. Why to act quickly? I think that this entire forum knows full well the neighborhood in which we live. Usually there are surprises, and usually these surprises are negative. There is always a reason why not to act. Therefore, when an opportunity arises, we must seize it with both hands and to do it. To find the strong leader, the courageous leader, because usually the other side, in the event that it doesn't succeed, has much more to lose than we do.
The Foreign Ministry Director General, who formerly served in Jerusalem's National Security Council, among other intelligence-related positions, further underscored that the list of nations that proactively aspire to establish normalized relations with Israel is very long.
There is an interest in countries to establish and renew relations with Israel. I saw this when I retired from the National Security Council, when I was approached by officials from separate countries, and also in the past 5 months. There are contacts with many countries. Will all of these mature? I'm not sure. But, certainly, the direction is positive. As I said, the circumstances, timing, convergence of interests mature. In a part of these countries, we are helping the process, and part of these will mature with time.
Levy went on to unveil that during his first trip to the United States last week, he held a closed-door meeting with representatives of countries from the region, including those who do not necessarily maintain friendly relations with the State of Israel. And while the Foreign Ministry's Director General stopped short from naming those countries, he revealed prospects of fresh peace accords with a number of nations in the next several months.
Last week, I returned from a first visit to the United States in my current position. I can say that we had very interesting and contributing meetings. We have an American commitment to enlarge the circle of normalization across the world. I think that normalization with Saudi Arabia is a very important step. However, in this framework, we should not neglect prospects in other countries where the potential can materialize even before Saudi Arabia, and, by the way, these countries are no less important.
It is interesting to know that while a question related to the circulating reports was raised during a State Department briefing, spokesman Matthew Miller ambiguously deflected that question, despite Washington's leading role to enlarge the circle of Israel's normalization across the world.
So we are aware of the reports. I would refer you to the two countries to speak to them in any detail. And of course, those are two countries with which we engage regularly, but I'm not going to speak to any private diplomatic conversations. I will say, as a broader measure, we of course fully support Israel's integration into the Middle East region, including normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia.
Meanwhile, the United States is reportedly courting Iran once again via Omani mediation to try and reach an arrangement that could limit Tehran's nuclear ambitions in exchange for nuclear-related sanctions relief, among others. According to one report that was acknowledged to TV7 by both American and European sources, senior White House advisors have doubled down on efforts to convince the Ayatollah regime that reaching a nuclear deal is in fact in their interest. And while Israeli officials have told TV7 that they do not believe the renewed American diplomatic push would necessarily bear fruit, during a briefing at the State Department last week, spokesman Miller highlighted the Biden administration's consistently voiced commitment to pursue a diplomatic solution to Tehran's accelerated enrichment program, despite reaching levels well beyond civic application.
As I said, we're not going to comment on every purported rumor, every purported conversation, other than to say what I just said, which is we do have the ability to send messages to Iran when it's in the best interest of the United States. We continue to believe that diplomacy is the best way, as I just said, to verifiably and durably ensure that Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon. And it is a priority of this administration to ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. We believe diplomacy is the best way to accomplish that, but I don't have any further conversations to announce.
It is important to highlight that while rumors of progress being made have circulated for the past several weeks, yesterday, during an interview with the domestic army radio station here in Israel, National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi revealed that Jerusalem does not envision an agreement between Iran and the United States. He said, quote, "We do not believe they will renew the agreement because the Americans are insisting that such an agreement be longer and stronger. The Iranians at this stage are not willing to accept the American demand for the simple reason that there is no price to pay." Nevertheless, Hanegbi, who also serves as director of Jerusalem's National Security Council, highlighted that if the Iranians don't agree to American demands, there will be a military operation whose result will be worse for them. It is further important to know that the remarks by the Israeli National Security Advisor were made while the U.S. military's Central Command Commander, General Michael Kurilla, landed in Israel for a visit as part of an IDF General Staff exercise dubbed Firm Hand. Among others, General Kurilla and IDF Chief of General Staff, Lieutenant General Hiltzia Levy, jointly participated in a situational assessment that took place at the General Staff's Operations Center that focused on the IDF's readiness for a military campaign in multiple arenas simultaneously. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. If you're blessed by TV7 Israel's productions, please consider making a financial contribution, which would then allow us to continue our operations here in Jerusalem. Separately, we would like to encourage you to pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, as well as for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time.